Hello, I am the WhollyCoder, bringing you the whole code and nothing but the code. In this session, I will be adding functionality to the clear button of the awesome calculator, which will allow us to clear the contents of the display area with just one click of a button. Let's dive in. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I need to create a file, a script file. I have a script folder for my JavaScript, but I need to create a file inside of that folder. I'm going to call it script.js. Now I need to link that file to my HTML. So I'm going to, at the bottom of the document, I'm going to add a script tag. And then I'm going to link the file, and it's going to be on the same level in a folder called JS, and the file name is script.js. I'm going to tidy this up a little bit. Close that up like that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to add a line of code in my script, this console log, so I can be able to see whether or not my JavaScript file is connected properly. So I'm going to log a message to the console. Hello, WhollyCoder. Now, in JavaScript, they're not too strict on the semicolons, but for some reason I just like putting my semicolons there, because when you code in other languages that require you to have semicolons, it's just much easier because you're already in the habit of putting them there. So just simple message here, console.log, and it says hello WhollyCoder. So I'm gonna go back to my browser, refresh my browser, and then I'm going to take a peek into the console, and as you can see, it says WhollyCoder. Hello WhollyCoder. Now just to make sure that this is the same thing, I'm going to say hello WhollyCoder with exclamation points or exclamation marks. So if I go here and refresh, as you can see, our JavaScript file is connected properly. So now that our file is connected, now we have to start the actual coding. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable to represent the display area, so I can be able to add values to the display area pretty simple. So if you take a look at the HTML code, you see the display here says class display, and it's a 0 there. So obviously that's a class, but what I'm going to do is I want to make an ID called output. So I'm going to make an ID called output so I can be able to target it individually, because when you have classes, basically I got classitis. I added class for everything, but it's fine. But classes are for the purposes of having a group of things, but ID is for a specific thing. So that's the reason why I'm doing it. So I have an ID called input here. So when I go back to my script file, I'm going to say output area is equal to document dot get element, we know how to spell, by ID, and the ID is going to be output. So now anytime I use the variable output area, it's going to represent the entire display area. So to see that in action, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go to our browser, refresh it, and then I'm going to type in output area, and once I hit enter, you see that it targets the output area. Okay, so that's what we need. And so if I want to see what the contents of that output area is, then all I would do is say output and enter. I can be enter text or enter HTML, but I'm going to say enter HTML, enter, and as you can see, there's a string value of 0 inside of the display. So that's the reason why we're targeting it, so we can easily add values to the display. So now that we have our output area targeted, what I want to do is add the functionality to the clear button, because in order for you to see that the clear button has worked, you have to be able to be able to manipulate the contents of the display. So the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to go back to our code, and I am going to add an ID to the clear button, and that ID is going to be called button clear, BTN clear. So just like before with the display, we're going to go back to our JavaScript, and we are going to say clear button is equal to document dot get element by ID, and that ID is going to be, you guessed it, BTN clear. And of course, I'm adding my semicolon. So now we have a clear button. And just like with the output area, we can target the clear button in the same fashion. So if we go to our browser and refresh, and then we type in clear button, and we hit enter, as you can see, that allows us to target the clear button. And now, since we have our clear button targeted, now what we need to do is we need to add an event listener to the clear button. So going back to the code, we are going to say clear button dot add event listener, and the type of listener we're going to add is going to be a click event, and we're going to have our anonymous function, which basically tells the script or tells the application what to do in the event that that button is clicked. So when that button is clicked, we're going to do something, and it's going to be the logic is going to be inserted here. So we already know that anytime we have a value in the display, at some point we want to clear it. So the only thing we're going to do is we're going to, whatever the value is inside the display, we're going to replace it with a 0. So in order to do that, we already know that our output area is going to be stored in this variable. And so we already also know that in order to access the value that's in the output area, we would say output area dot enter HTML. This will tell us what the value is inside of the display area. But we don't really want to know, we don't really care what the value is in the display area. All we want to do is set that value equal to 0. That's all we really want to do. So once that button is clicked, the event listener is attached to it, so it's going to be clicked, and then this function is going to change the value of the inner HTML to 0. Now, it's pretty difficult, or should I say impossible, to know whether or not this is going to work currently when I refresh, because once I click this button, it's already a 0 there. So one thing I want to do, just for the sake of this tutorial, what I want to do is I want to add to the console, log to the console, a message. And I'm going to say clear button clicked. Okay? So we just click. So when the clear button is clicked, it's going to run this function. It's going to log to the console, clear button clicked, and then it's going to change the value that's in the inner HTML or the output area to 0. Now, since the value is 0, once again, it's going to be hard to know, but at least, at the very least, we'll know that the button was clicked. So I refreshed it. I click, 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 see, button's clicked. So we know the button is clicked. So that means that we also know, since we don't have any errors, that code that's below here where it says output area.innerHTML, it says it's set to 0. So here's a way, we already know the button is working. So now here's a way we can tell whether our code is actually working. So we're just going to say 1, 2, 3. So our default value inside our calculator now, once we refresh, is going to be 1, 2, 3. So now once we click the clear button, boop, now our value shows 0. If you were following along, you have just added the ability to clear the contents of the display area of the awesome calculator with just one click of a button. In our next session, I will be adding functionality to the opposite button of the awesome calculator, which will allow us to display the opposite of the current value in the display area. I am the WhollyCoder, bringing you the whole code and nothing but the code. Until next time.